Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. TLDRpharmacy.com just put out a great post, and I wanted to make sure you heard about it, that says, please don't use a template to write your cover letter. And Brandon and I have talked quite a bit about this, and we want to try to save you before you send it in, because I don't think you realize how endemic it is for people to use that exact same framework of, I'm writing to express my interest, I've had the pleasure to meet with, and this is why your residency is, the best ever. It's going to be so good for me. Okay? And it sets you up in such a wrong way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a literary criticism. My undergrad was in English. I have, honestly, enough English credits in grad school for a master's, but I ended up doing a human-computer interaction. But if you are going to use that document, and it is a good document, it's page 3 of the UCSF. If you put in UCSF writing pharmacy residency writing letter of intent, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and use that first paragraph. You'll plagiarize the heck out of it in your own little world, and then you follow the Red Queen, and it's off with his head. So once you've got that and you've gotten your letter written from that first paragraph, you cut it off. And it's very much what we did in English. I've had to take poetry classes, and you write their words in the first paragraph, then you write your words, which are similar only in format, but not the same words as the person, so you get the style and you get used to it, because some of the poetic styles are very complex. But it in no way should match this, because honestly, you can use this thing called compare in Microsoft Word, and it would compare your first paragraph to their first paragraph, and it would be about 50 or 60% the same, which is not going to bode well if in the rest of your work you're saying, I love innovation, entrepreneurship, learning new things. Then you just completely, used a template to create what is the most important and most unique document that you can possibly give a PGY1 residency director. And this is why I think it happens. So if you look at the page 2 of the letter of intent, cover letter, personal statements, what they're saying is don't write a cover letter, don't write a personal statement, write a letter of intent. And since this content is really Comp 2, a sophomore level class where you're providing pathos, logos, ethos, why you're making an argument, a rhetorical argument, why you should get an interview. It's just been either so long since you did that, or you never had Comp 2, some pharmacy schools don't require it, or you've never had business writing, business letter writing and things like that. So, or you just don't like to write, or you haven't written a lot. Non-native speaking is also an obstacle to getting a good letter out. So my first language wasn't English, so I got an English major to make sure that my English was perfect, because I realized how important it was. Okay, but let me do a little criticism. So this is a literary criticism. It just basically says I'm going to take a work of writing, and I'm going to take it apart, and I'm going to say this is what I think is beneficial, this is what's not beneficial. But what a literary criticism is not, it is not a criticism of an institution or a person. So I'm not criticizing the Office of Career and Professional Development at UCSF. I'm actually doing the opposite. I'm lauding the office for at least giving some guidance to students who have clearly not gotten this kind of guidance from many pharmacy schools. And I'm just saying, if you're going to drop 160 or 200 grand on something, hopefully you'll get a little bit of help with your, resumes and letters of intent, which are clearly and easily the most important things to get you through the door, to get you to the job. Because what good is all that learning if you don't get the job that you want afterwards? Okay, so let's start with paragraph 1. If I had read this, if I was going to edit this, I would chop off the first one. So Red Queen, again, off with his head, cut off the first paragraph. I'm going to tell you why. It's very insulting, actually. And I want to tell you why. So the first thing is, I'm writing to express, my interest. Well, no kidding. Yeah, I got it. This is an application. I've got 60 of them piled up here. Are you really going to start off with, I'm writing to express my interest? So you're saying, I'm telling you I'm applying? Well, I know you're applying. This is 3 seconds of my life I'll never get back. I had the pleasure to meet with your current residents and with Dr. Such and Such and Dr. Such and Such to learn more about your residency program. Now, from this, I can't tell, but what I'm reading is your residents' names were not important enough to learn, but the people that actually have some pull are important. Okay? You don't want to do that. If you're going to say current residents, you better put their names in there, because it's going to be the residents who are reading this. So you just not only told them you're applying, you just insulted them and told them they're not important. They already know that they're working 60 hours a day and that they're, working at the bottom of the totem pole so that one day they can be at the top, okay? So if you're going to name drop the residents. Those are the people that are going to be reading this, okay? Your program offers what I look for. Whoa. Just like the residency showcase is not about you, it's about the residency. The residency is not about you. This is about what you can contribute, and then, yes, you're going to learn from it, but it's all about serving patients. It's all about creating innovation. It's all about providing skills, okay? Those are the things you want to convey. So my recommendation, use that first paragraph to get you started if you need to, but then cut it off. It is unoriginal, it is insulting, and it is not how you want to start. What you want to do is frame how you are going to provide evidence that, yes, you are a match, because that's what you're wanting. You want an interview and to match, okay? In Comp 2, what I did, and I had them chop it off at the end, was, when I taught Comp 2 in college, was, in this paper I will, and for you it's going to be in this letter of intent, I will articulate how I'm going to, or had, clinical experience, how I provided community service, leadership, teaching, or research. This applicant put in all 5. No. You put in 2 or 3, okay? 3, I think, is really the best. It just feels right. It's an odd number. And what you can do is, what you want to do is make 5 paragraphs. Make 1 for your clinical, 1 for your service, 1 for your leadership, 1 for your teaching, and 1 for your research. And then what you're going to do is you're going to look at it and you're going to say, okay, which of these 3 really pop? Which are the 3 that just really energize me and really match this site? Remember, you're writing a cover letter not to replicate in 11 times or 12 times, however many you're going to apply to. You're writing a cover letter to this person and this site. So you should have your 5 paragraphs, and for this site, which are the best 3 of those 5? Okay, once you have those best 3, then you must use stories and you must use evidence, okay? What makes this second paragraph so bad is that there is no story. There is not a single specific story about, clinically, I helped this patient with this condition. I have served in the community at this place. And why isn't it there? Because it's not meant to be a real letter of intent. It's just meant to be an example. No one would ever use this much generality. Oh my gosh. You must use specifics. People latch on to specifics. People latch on to great stories. What is that thing that you were like, oh my gosh, that was a tough day, but that was one of the best times that I've ever had. Oh my gosh, I got up in front of 100 people to teach. Oh my gosh, I finished my research poster. We figured this one thing out that nobody really caught. Oh my gosh, I helped this person so much. They were crying at the end. They were so thankful. Don't put the thankful and so crying. But the story itself will register that in the person. So the second paragraph should be your strongest of the three, which one matches the residency site, and two, it should be a tearjerker. There should be pathos in this. There should be, oh my gosh, I really, really want to meet this person in an interview. This person did this. That's really cool. And sure, there are some national positions that are like, whoa, this person's really qualified. That's really cool. I want to meet them. But you will be amazed at some of the stories that students have about a one-on-one interaction that honestly would make me want to become a pharmacist that day. Okay? That's the kind of story that should start the second paragraph. After you put in this letter of intent, I want to outline my service and leadership and teaching. Okay? Then you outline that service story. Then you outline that leadership story. And then that teaching story. It should be a pleasure for the resident or RPD to read this. Okay? It is an absolute insult to send them a template. I'm telling you. They are taking, there is no, okay guys, we've got 40 hours extra this week to read residency, cover letters and CVs. There's none of that. It's somebody's got 30 seconds before they got to go round again, okay? So second paragraph, after you've done your, in this letter of intent, I will, articulate, and don't use those exact words. You need to have your first story, then your second story, then your third. So, there's that thing about long-term career goals and short-term career goals. It's become a cliche to say, I want to work at an academic medical center, and I want to teach pharmacy students, and I want to work clinically and bring the clinical skills into the classroom. Okay? It's not that that's a bad goal. Okay? It's that it's a really, really far one. And what they really want to hear is, well, that's great that one day you're going to move on to a college, but what are you going to do here? And so what you should be familiar with is how they teach. So are they teaching through a teaching certificate? Are they precepting students at a close by school of pharmacy? If they don't have a school of pharmacy, is there some kind of mentorship with students that are going through there? Okay, how do they teach? Okay, so what you want to do is say, my long-term goal is to become an educator, very general, and I'm excited that your program allows me the opportunity to serve as preceptor, as educator. As a preceptor, I make no money, okay? The thousands and thousands of dollars you send to a pharmacy school are to keep the place running. What we do is we volunteer because we want you to succeed, and we know that if you're going to be doing MBA or you're trying to, if you want some kind of academic position, then I can help you a lot, okay? When you're looking at saying what your long-term plans are, you actually want to be much more general. You want to say, I want to be an educator, because you may end up being a corporate educator. You may be educating as an administrator, helping the pharmacists under you, okay? To say, and this, unfortunately, what they did in this one was, my experience includes an education master's degree. That really is so far from what most people are going to have. then it makes you feel like you're less than. I think what Brandon did when in the book, The 100 Strong Residency Interview, Questions, Answers, and Rationales, he talked about how he taught guitar. And I could not get that out of my head. The same thing was true when I was on the admissions committee. I would hear stories, and I was like, that's a really cool story. I didn't realize you did this or you did that, you know? And it's saying what is unique. And he showed he can teach. He showed he can be entrepreneurial in the answers to those questions. But what he didn't say was, well, I'm going to be a professor at a college of pharmacy someday. Okay, it just becomes cliche. So find a different way to say educate, especially, there's all kinds of options. And many of you in APHA have done the things like, helping with the naloxone teaching, helping with immunizations and teaching patients about it. Educating is educating. Don't worry so much about making sure they know you want to be an academic, you want to be like them. Many days they're like, I kind of wish I could just count some pills. It's so hard. So my advice with the long-term career goal is to make it general, but show very specific ways that you've done that and skill set, whether it's teaching, research, or whatever. The next one is talking about the research, and this is something you have to address one way or the other. And the reason you address it, again, we put it in the book, but the reason you address it is because you have to do a residency project. And what they're thinking on their end is, how much work is it going to take to get this person on board with writing a residency project? All you really need to do is say, I've written an abstract before, I've done an IRB, IRB is getting permission to use whatever, or not having to have permission. And that you at least acknowledge that there is a residency project and that you are qualified, or at least have the ability to learn how to do it without much help. Okay. The last thing was that this person put, my dedication to service is demonstrated through. Okay, so is demonstrated is in the passive. Okay, and it's telling, not showing. Okay, I demonstrate, and again, this is not a criticism of the Office of Career and Professional Development. They made a generalization. They made this up, not ever expecting people would copy it word for word. Okay, what you want to do is not try to list as many as you can, which is what is in here, and very broad generalizations. What you want to do is show the impact of the organized fair that you did. I organized a health fair that helped this many people, okay, gain immunizations, but that isn't getting to what happened. What happens is that if you immunize, and I'm taking a stretch here, especially against if the non-vaxxers are listening, but if you can make this conclusion, you can say, we went into an underserved area, provide this many immunizations, and we believe that students will have fewer missed days of school, helping them do better in school. The clinic and the health fair is not the end. The clinic and the health fair sure shows leadership, but that's not what served the patients. What was the outcome? You need to put the outcome. The outcome was that kids are going to school and learning and not getting behind because you, as a pharmacist, made something available that was not available before. That's something that matters. That's something that you can hold on to as a reader of one of these documents, okay? So don't just list all the things you did. Put in there, this is how it impacted the community, okay? It's not, my dedication was demonstrated, I'm checking off that I did service, one of the 5, it's the 5 pillars: clinical, service, leadership, teaching, and research. But the bad thing is that they put service last. You kind of want to put service first. that your primary goal is to serve the patient and to serve the organization that you're working for. By putting it last, you're kind of saying, yeah, and then I did this service thing because I kind of have to do service. I made significant contributions. Again, telling, not showing. You must show the impact of what you've done. Okay. So again, they didn't write this document for you to copy it. They wrote this document to give you a hand up, but it should be absolutely littered with specifics, not these broad generalities. Okay. The last thing, and this just absolutely is the wrong thing to say, is the 5th paragraph. This will provide me with the opportunity to further develop my clinical knowledge, my critical thinking, my teaching research, and my leadership skills. Okay? It's all about me. Okay? I look forward to visit you so that you can let me talk about me, And that's exactly what you don't want to say. What you want to say is, this program will provide me the opportunity to serve using clinical knowledge, using my critical thinking, sharing through teaching, okay, discovering through research, and leading and providing better outcomes, okay, with the work that I've done and the skill set that I have. Okay? It must be forward-facing. It must show that this is what I want to do because I came here, I got into pharmacy school by saying I want to help people. But the last thing you want to do is say, you know what, it would be so good if you accepted me because I am the bomb, and what you have is going to make me awesome, okay? It's not intentional. I know that it's not intentional. I know that the students writing things like this are not selfish. They've given up 4 years of their lives to be in a profession of service. What's happened is that the students simply don't have enough humanities background, humanities classes, enough criticism of their papers. I'm talking about writing papers, 5 pages for a short one, 15 pages with 15 sources for a little bit longer one, and having somebody say, your argument is suffering here. Your argument is not good here. You're strong here, but you've only used numbers here. You've provided no emotional context. You provided no credibility here. That's hard. I'll tell you a story to finish this out, okay? So I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to grad school. I kind of, after about, I want to say, it was a while, I decided, I just, since I get free classes at DMAC, I'm going to take some English classes because, I was petrified. I went into literature class and I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to answer these questions? Where's the Scantron? Where's the, multiple choice that I plug in on my computer? And it was handwriting answers, essays, arguments, and all of these things. And, I made it through that. I made it through that BA in English, eventually getting some classes up at Iowa State. And then I decided, gosh, I'd really like to go to grad school. I want to see what it's like to be a PhD student. And so instead of just jumping in and saying, oh my gosh, let me swipe my credit card and start this master's or PhD degree, I said, let me take one class. And this class was literature and the environment. And I thought I was a pretty good writer. I am a pretty good writer relative to most things. And it was just so clever that the professor knew this. But the professor, hold on, Roomba's going off. Okay, so the professor has us do these very small essays. It was not even a page on something. And, I get my grades back. It comes back, we put them in the Dropbox, and then it comes back to you, and they were all C minuses. And I'm like, wait, what just happened? Well, I'm a good writer. And as I, got that feedback, it's like, wow, I'm a good writer, but I didn't revise that enough to make that a good piece of writing. Okay. So that's the big difference. Okay. You can, unlike a multiple choice test where you take it and you're done, you can revise and revise, or you can have people help you revise and edit and those things. Okay. I had no idea that I wasn't putting the most important things in. And really it came down to, okay, well, I need to put the main point here. I need to support it with the evidence here. I need to have a transition sentence that goes to my next paragraph here. These 3 points, main points, should be identified in the beginning, and then I should summarize those main points at the end. Comp 2 stuff. And I guess I had just gotten so used to just writing and just getting it out and getting it done that I didn't really frame it well. Okay, so as you're writing these cover letters, Brandon gave a great example on his blog post at the very end of, this is how I started my job application. And it goes something like this. I'll be honest, if you were to tell me 5 years ago when I was graduating pharmacy school I'd become an oncology specialist, I'd laugh at you. Either through luck, serendipity, or funny twist of irony, that's exactly where my career has taken me, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I've been practicing on, and so forth. Okay. When you hear that, you're like, that's pretty funny. I'd like to get to know that guy. Or I'd like to invite that person in for an interview. And you're like, I'm not a writer. I can't write something that awesome sauce. Yeah, you actually can. It's just being courageous enough to be honest and to have people like me who do editing and writing for a living, or part of my living, look at it and go, okay, you've got the idea here, and this is how you would do it. But the most important thing is that you're innovative and that you're original and that you're unique. And every single one of you, all 15,000 of you now, have done something unique. And there's something that these residency sites would gravitate towards. But using a template is going to absolutely bury that uniqueness. And playing it safe puts you in the middle, and the middle doesn't get invited to an interview. So you've got to kind of, take the chance and put that thing. Now, word of warning, don't use something that's meant to evoke sympathy like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for this person. This person did this but despite of this. Don't do that. Okay? Do it on your merits. Do it on the ways that you've served people. Okay? I can do my own cover letter here, I would say something like, if I was applying for an academic position, I've been teaching for the last 10 years, and teaching is probably not one of the things that my high school teachers would have thought that I would do. While I had, a B average through high school, I was average in my academic commitment. But what I was not average was, what I felt that I was above average was, is always wanting to make sure that other people did well. And throughout the years, I've learned to educate, to help people get through things that were once very difficult for them. For example, the book I wrote, Memorizing Pharmacology, while memorization is something that most people put to the side as something that should be done in grade school, it does lay the foundation for some of the higher order things. And I was finding that there was mistakes, that somebody looked at the ending of "ene" and thought that that was an antihistamine. But it's not the "ene", it's the atidine. And then I kind of go into this very unique story about how I kind of discovered that endings really make it a lot easier to learn, but more importantly, that using and teaching these endings led to my career, led to my desire to, I hate the word desire, led to me wanting to teach. And I went through and I taught in middle school science. I taught for a test prep company. I taught in guest lectures. I taught as a residency, in a residency certificate. So all of these things I did to develop my teaching, but they're unique because I'm not saying I want to be a professor. What I'm saying is that I did the hard work of going into a middle school science classroom. I taught test prep. I was one-on-one, and because I did those things, I have stories to share. You've done those things too. So make sure you share your stories. Make sure you provide evidence for the good works that you've done. But please, Brandon and I are both in agreement on this one. Please, please don't use a template. It's just, we want you to succeed. And we know that on the other side, if you use those same words from that UCSF that I'm writing to express an interest, I've had the pleasure to meet, you might as well have just started your residency letter of intent with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So good luck. Again, I'm happy to help those who reach out. And just, best way to contact me is by email, aagara@dmac.edu, or hit me up on Facebook, Tony Farm D1.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.